We're about to deconstruct one of the most subtle and honestly one of the most powerful forms of psychological leverage there is. See, this is a system that doesn't rely on force or aggression, not at all. Instead, it operates in the quiet spaces of our relationships, using our deepest, most human need for connection against us. Welcome to the Gilded Cage of affection-based control.
This right here, this idea, is the key that unlocks the entire system. Think about it. A blade threatens your physical safety, sure, but a hug you have to earn? That threatens your sense of self, your feeling of belonging, your very emotional survival. This isn't affection as a gift. This is affection as leverage, a tool used to meter out compliance. And in this explainer, we're going to take that tool apart, piece by piece.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by defining the weaponized hug itself. Then we'll dive into the internal chaos it creates, what we call the cognitive scramble. After that, we'll actually diagram the engine of control, the affection-withdrawal loop, and look at why it's so incredibly effective on a biological level. And finally, we'll lay out a protocol for reclaiming your mental independence before we land on the core strategic insight behind this entire dynamic.
Okay, Section 1, the weaponized hug. This is our foundation. The central idea here is that the most effective manipulation is often disguised as its exact opposite. It doesn't feel cold and cruel. It feels warm, it feels inviting, and it is entirely conditional. It's designed to bypass your logic and go straight for the part of your brain that craves connection.
So what is this, really? Let's break it down. Control through affection, it's a psychological mechanism, and its whole purpose is to exert leverage over your emotional state. And how does it do that? Well, it takes all the things that are supposed to be unconditional, love, attention, warmth, and it turns them into a metered currency, a currency you only get when you comply. It basically forces you to become a performer in your own relationship, where you're just constantly auditioning for approval.
And this really gets to the paradox at the heart of this whole thing. We're conditioned to see manipulation as something loud or deceptive, but the master of this technique? They know that a strategically withdrawn smile, or a subtle shift into disappointment, or just that sudden emotional distance, well, that can be infinitely more powerful than a scream. It creates confusion instead of conflict, and right there, in that confusion, is where control takes root.
Let's move on to Section 2 and see how this all builds. We're now shifting from the operator's tactic to your experience as the target. This is about that knot in your stomach. It's about that 3 a.m. overthinking, where you're replaying conversations in your head, just trying to find the exact moment the weather changed. It's that visceral, anxious feeling that you're not a partner in a relationship, but more like a project that's being managed.
Now, the process often kicks off with something called love bombing. And as you can see here, this isn't just some honeymoon phase. It's a strategic inundation. The operator literally floods you with intense attention, with praise, with validation, and the goal is to establish themselves as the primary source of all good feelings in your life. They aren't just becoming your partner, they're becoming your main survival resource.
And here it is. This is the crucial question. This is the exact moment the trap closes. The foundation has been laid. You've been conditioned to this constant stream of validation. So what do you think happens to your nervous system when they suddenly, and without any explanation, just turn off the tap?
You enter what's called the scramble. It's an immediate panic state of high alert. Your brain doesn't think, oh, they're probably just having a bad day. No, it internalizes the withdrawal as a personal failure, a sign that you are somehow deficient. And the questions are automatic. What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? Your focus shifts completely from your own needs to servicing their emotional state just to get that warmth back. And that is the moment control shifts from you to them.
The ultimate cost of living in the scramble is the loss of your cognitive sovereignty, your ability to think for yourself and prioritize your own goals. And it's eroded by the sheer mental energy, the cognitive load it takes to constantly monitor their mood and perform to keep that affection flowing. You're no longer the pilot of your own mind. You've become a radar operator for someone else's.
And that brings us to Section 3. Now that we understand the feeling, let's take a look at the machine that produces it. Because this isn't random, it's a repeatable system. This is the engine of emotional control, the Rationed Validation Loop.
Okay, this system breaks down into 4 distinct phases. Let's walk through it. It begins with inundation, the love bombing we just talked about. It floods your brain with bonding chemicals like oxytocin and the reward chemical dopamine. You feel amazing, seen, understood, euphoric. Then comes metering. The operator basically becomes a dopamine valve, rationing that intense affection, providing it only for compliance. And that is the leverage point. Next up is withdrawal.
If you push back or assert a boundary, they don't fight. No, they just dim the lights. They become distant, creating this chilling attention vacuum that your brain panics to fill. And that, of course, leads to the final phase, the fix. You yield, you apologize, you change your behavior. Instantly, the warmth rushes back in and the relief is intoxicating. This whole cycle powerfully conditions you to believe that compliance equals love and dissent equals pain.
And the ultimate result of this self-reinforcing loop is captured perfectly here. The intense highs and the desperate lows, the scrambling and the relief, that entire emotional symphony becomes the sound of love in this dynamic. And its primary job is to get so loud, so all-consuming, that you can no longer hear the quiet voice of self, your own needs, your own boundaries, and your own desires.
So, why are we so susceptible to this? I mean, why doesn't our logic just kick in and recognize the unhealthy pattern? Well, Section 4 explains that this tactic isn't just playing on our feelings, it's hijacking our ancient, hardwired survival hardware. This slide shows a really fundamental mismatch. For millions of years, social exclusion was basically a death sentence. Being cast out from the tribe meant you were vulnerable. So our brains evolved to see social rejection as a direct survival threat. Fast forward to today. When we experience a subtle emotional withdrawal from a partner, what we can call a cold snap, our ancient brain doesn't register it as just a mood. It registers it as danger, and it puts our entire threat detection system on high alert. The modern reality is just a little emotional distance, but our brain's perception is a 5-alarm fire.
The operator also weaponizes a cognitive bias called the Benevolence Trap. This exploits what's known as the halo effect. It's our mental shortcut that just assumes kind people have good intentions. By performing all this overwhelming kindness during the love bombing phase, they build up so much goodwill that when they start to withdraw affection, we doubt ourselves first. We think, well, they're such a good person, the problem must be with me. It's a trap that uses their perceived goodness to invalidate our reality and silence our intuition.
And finally, you have the addictive power of intermittent reinforcement. This is the exact same principle that makes slot machines so compelling. A reward that's given unpredictably is way more motivating than one that's consistent. Because the operator's affection is conditional, those moments you finally earn it back feel incredibly intense and special. And we mistake the anxiety and relief of this control tactic for the passion and depth of a truly deep connection.
All right, we've dissected the problem, the mechanism, and the psychology. So now, let's move to the solution. Section 5 is all about action, how you can systematically dismantle this dynamic and reclaim your cognitive sovereignty. This isn't about just hoping things get better. This is a protocol.
The protocol has 3 steps. First, reappraise. The moment you feel that cold snap and the panic of the scramble starting to set in, you pause and you label the tactic in your mind. This is affection rationing. Just the act of naming it shifts you from your emotional brain to your rational brain, and it starts to break the spell. Second, diversify your supply. This is all about breaking their monopoly on your self-worth. You have to consciously re-engage with friends, hobbies, work, any other sources of value and validation that aren't controlled by them. And third, maintain a neutral baseline. When they withdraw, you have to resist that powerful, gut-wrenching urge to overfunction to win them back. Just go about your business. This inaction is actually an incredibly powerful action. It signals that their approval valve no longer controls your emotional state. It diffuses the entire.
Now, on the flip side, these principles can be used ethically. For leaders or partners who want to build healthy influence, the goal is the exact opposite. You establish a baseline of unconditional respect. You use affection to empower someone's growth and independence, not to punish them for disagreeing. You become a steady hand, a safe harbor for their autonomy, and that builds a much deeper, more resilient kind of trust.
And that brings us to our final section. We've gone through the entire system. Now we're going to distill it all down to its core strategic insight. This is the central takeaway of this entire explainer.
Here's the crucial point. The moment affection becomes transactional, a bribe for compliance, it stops being love. It becomes a tool. It becomes a leash. If you find yourself constantly adjusting who you are just to follow someone's smile, you aren't being loved, you are being leased. And awareness of that transaction is the key to breaking the whole system.
And this is the ultimate principle of affection-based power dynamics. The whole system works by making one person the sole provider of emotional warmth and then turning that warmth into a currency for compliance. It hijacks our survival instincts and our cognitive biases to create this self-reinforcing loop of control. In any human system, the person who has the power to grant or withdraw emotional warmth and belonging holds immense, silent power over the will of others. Understanding this, really understanding this, is the critical first step toward ensuring the only will you ever answer to is your own.